Hey guys, welcome back to the show for a Sunday Night Live with Sherri Divband. We're really excited to talk with you guys about the timeline convergence, timeline wars, and all this stuff containing or surrounding timelines that we've been talking about and hearing about from a lot of people lately. It seems to be what's hitting the collective consciousness right now because I think there's really something to it. But before that, I just want to make a few quick announcements. Just a reminder, I will be speaking at the XCon event in Springfield, Missouri, October 11th through the 13th. It's Margie Kay's conference put on by UNX Network, and it's more of like a paranormal cryptid UFO type of conference, but I'm specifically going to be talking about the history of the secret space program. And I've been working on my presentation for that, and it's really coming together, and I'm excited about it. It's always fun to put all the things you've learned over all the years together and present them in a package. So I'll be doing that, and those tickets are available below in the that link is in the description. And I think we won't waste any more time tonight. Everybody here should know who Sherri Divband is, but if you don't, we'll give her the opportunity to briefly introduce herself, and then we're going to just dive in head first tonight and have some fun talking about this.
Yeah. Thanks for having me back, guys.
Of
I
course.
always love talking to you both.
Yeah,
Well,
exactly.
gosh, I don't even know what to categorize myself. Author, founder of Aramis Creative Learning Center, an alternative educational platform for children. I work with psychic children. I'm an ambassador for children, but I also work with adults doing soul healing, which is where I get a lot of the information. So much like people do QHHT, I do soul reading sessions, but instead I connect with their higher self directly and their guides that come through, whether they're galactic, angelic, interdimensional, various different, there's a plethora. And I'm able to access their past lives, their soul origin. So much information comes through. And I like to share that information without sharing people's personal details because it's really relevant, I think, for the collective. So that's kind of where I get my information from. I'm not a researcher, don't like research, didn't like school, so I'm definitely not gonna, write anything down and get all in the in the depths of the internet. That's not me. But I do learn a lot through my sessions, which is a lot of fun. So that's what the premise of tonight is a lot of information that's come through in my sessions I feel is critical to share with everybody. And I'm already writing another book, so I don't want to wait and write another book, and it would take too long. So we're sharing it now.
And you just came out with a book, right? The end
Yeah,
one?
no. I just released Courage to Change the Freedom Movement right after the last conference that I spoke at with you guys in
Right.
June or July. And then I'm writing my fifth book that has to do with animals
That's what
right
I
now.
saw.
Yeah,
That's what I
yeah,
saw.
it's not
Okay.
done yet. It's in progress.
Yeah, I'm excited about that one. That's huge.
Yeah.
So let's just dive in. So we were just talking beforehand, and for those who don't know, this is a miracle that Sherri's even here tonight. She was sick, and then she was under psychic attack, and with
Mhm.
help, thanks to Laura Van Tyne, she was able to kind of manage what was going on. And I'll let Sherri tell that story because she'll tell it way better than I can. But it's really interesting what was trying to stop you from sharing this information. So just take it away and tell us what happened, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, well, I think it's relevant, and I want to share this today because I think people need to be aware that everybody gets attacked, regardless of where you live, who you are, what you do. I just happen to be very in tune, and I'm attacked quite often, unfortunately, because of the type of work that I do. And I'm out there, I put myself out there. So, I can be a target, just like I think a lot of people are that are public speakers. Um, but what I didn't tell you guys about the story and what I realized is, so I rarely get sick. Maybe once or twice a year, and I recently have gotten sick several times. And I realized that it was that psychic attack that was happening to me. And now I'm putting together what I didn't share with you before is I think that I wasn't meant to get the information that I'm sharing with you right now because a lot of the information that I'm sharing today I received through sessions that I was supposed to do weeks ago. And I came back from Universal for my daughter's birthday. So, there's lots of germs, lots of people that I crossed paths with at Universal Studios one day, came back, but I was one of 11 people and I got very ill. No one else to this day ever got sick but me. And so I realized halfway through the week that I had to cancel all my appointments. I generally speak to anywhere from 5 to 15 people a week, children, adults from all over the world, different time zones. I had to cancel all of my appointments that week. I was ill. I didn't even get out of bed all week. My animals did not leave my side. I took a bunch of pictures I was sharing with people on Facebook and Instagram. Like they literally, my Doberman was on my chest, just like with his long nose, like poking me like the whole week. My cat was like in my arms and my other dog was down below. Like they wouldn't leave my side. And I got a lot of different treatments, but I realized halfway through the week, I'm being attacked. This is not fun. And I was kind of weak, so I wasn't able to do my normal things that I would do to protect myself. Well, I do the protection, but the things that I would do to clear myself, rather, I was really struggling. And I have a friend that I've known for 12 years that I would normally call on, and I just kept feeling like she can't help me. And you're going to get through this. It's fine. Well, I ended up with pharmaceuticals. I had some antibiotics and I ended up getting steroids. I got better. I got better on my own with those helps, but I didn't ask anybody. And I had to reschedule all of those people plus the people I needed to do that next week that was already on my calendar. And I'm booked out 3 months in advance. So it's really hard for me to find places to put people. So I went back into work mode, full charge. And I realized that the people I was supposed to speak with the week before, I was learning some really incredible things. And I was like, this is really one after another. Every person I talked to, I was like, this is incredible. And it has to do with what we're talking about tonight. But I was feeling very drained all week. And I was really I never get fully recovered. I was really tired. I couldn't sleep well. And I really struggled. And Laura Vantine, as you spoke about, we connected recently and we did an interview on my channel on Friday. And I watched the Parsy interview that's relevant as well, that you guys had on your channel all around the same time. And I started to get really attacked. And I reached out to Laura and I said, Laura, I need help. I got tripped at the grocery store, like by nothing. Like there was literally nothing there. And I almost fell on my face. I had to catch myself on my wrist. My wrist is sprained. I can't really do much with it. My knees were bruised. It was just all these crazy things were happening back to back. So Laura has helped me tremendously. And last night I got very ill in the middle of the night and I knew I was being attacked. And I felt something like grabbing my throat even. And I was like, I kept going like this. I was trying to like grab something that wasn't there. And then I had red marks because I was scratching because then it was itchy. And I was like, I felt like my throat was being attacked. And I was like, oh my God, I'm getting sick again. I'm not going to be able to do this interview tomorrow. I'm going to cancel. And then I'm thinking, panicking, I got to cancel all my appointments this week. I can't do it. I can't do that again. Like I was just like, I reached out to Laura in the middle of the night and she got back to me immediately. It was crazy. She just had a sixth sense. So she worked on me today, but I almost didn't make it here because I almost passed out while I was cooking dinner like an hour or two before this. I got really, really lightheaded. I felt awful. And she was working on me and she said that she saw like 3 darts that were sent to my throat and they were stinging me. And she communicated with these beings and they were basically adamant that they were blocking me from talking tonight and from being able to do the work that I do. Essentially, like they don't want me to help children or people or the collective at all. So they're just continuously attacking me. So Laura, if you're watching this, thank you so much because she helped me a lot and she's continuing to work on me. And tomorrow we're going to work together some more. And if it wasn't for her, honestly, I don't think I'd be here right now to do this interview. Not that I'm not that dramatic. I'd still be here, just not on this interview.
Right.
Right,
You know,
right.
Laura's done some emergency surgery on me before too,
Yeah.
psychic surgery, right?
Right.
And she's the real deal. So that's amazing
Yeah.
that she was able to help you. And I had no idea all this was going on. And an hour ago, I made you think that you were late for the interview,
Oh
just
my
messaging
God,
you.
that was the worst.
I was like, you coming on? She's like, what? No. Um, so okay, what is the information that's been coming through that you're not allowed to share, that they don't want you to share?
Okay, so it's quite simple and complex at the same time, but really profound and it's hard. It's difficult to explain. So I'm going to try my best to do this in a very eloquent manner. But basically, what's happening, and I've noticed this for years, And that's why Sarah Breskman, Cosme, and Leah Ray and I did a live on my channel weeks ago just to try to start this conversation. And I've mentioned it before, but it's really heightened right now because of these astral and timeline wars. So what's happening is, as we all know, there's no time outside of this dimension, or there are a few dimensions there that time exists, I should say, not just this one. So our lifetimes, other than this one, are all parallel. They're all happening simultaneously, and there's this veil that's in between that keeps them separated on purpose. So if you look at it as metaphorically, there are different lines, which is why I started calling them timelines years ago before I even heard anybody else say the word timelines. I'm like, oh, these are timelines because they're like lines. I would see them as lines of light that would go, and they were parallel to each other in kind of an etherical space. But there's this veil that keeps them separated so that we don't know, we're not aware of the other Aarons and other timelines or the other Sherrys or the other versions of ourselves. And they're perceived as past, present, and future because of our linear time. But if you take that out, Lemuria and Atlantis and ancient Egypt and the time of Yeshua and whatever timeline, doesn't matter, the dinosaurs, all of it is happening all at the same time. They're overlapping just based on our linear time frame. So a lot of things that are happening right now, let's say where I am, in other timelines in this exact land, there's other things happening all at the same time. And there's a lot of overlapping. And because of this collective awakening that's been happening, really escalated since the pandemic period, the veil has become very thin. And that's why a lot of people are starting to remember their past lives. They're starting to recall a lot, they're activating, and now they're tapping into their other lifetimes. So when someone does QHHT and they're regressed and they find themselves in another lifetime, or I do a session with somebody and I'm able to see, this was you in another lifetime, this was your name, this is what you did. I've started to notice over the last few years that the soul contracts that we have with people, we have soul contracts with a lot of these same people, timelines, but they're actually connecting and influencing each other now more than they ever have before. And I have so many examples that I can give you guys so that I can help people this to make sense. But I want to make sure so far what I've said, you guys are following me and I'm doing a good job explaining it so far.
I mean,
Yeah,
you're on Journey
absolutely.
to Truth. We're following you.
Okay.
Right.
um, okay, so for example, I wrote down some of the most crazy ones that I've seen thus far. And I want to talk about your interview with Parsy because it really actually activated a huge memory of mine, which has caused a cascade of things for me. And I think that it escalated my attack, which is important to talk about because of my connection in other timelines that I'm in that I just discovered and my children are in and that I just discovered that I had no idea about because of that interview.
So this is all like a week fresh. Like, okay.
Well, not some of these examples are old, but most of them are new. Like they're just coming through. So
Right.
I'm not going to give anybody's personal details because that obvious reasons. So I'm working with this one woman, I'll just say in the area of Sweden. I will not give her name. And I've actually worked with this woman for years, not a new client, but we spoke recently. And I was shown that she has this Pleiadian commander guide that I've seen in sessions before. And and right now I was shown that this guide of hers is on this Pleiadian ship. I could see it very clearly. They were using something similar to looking glass technology, although they didn't call it that, but they were looking at potential outcomes and there was a bunch of them. And they were looking at potential outcomes for 2024 for the election and the results of that. And I'm not just talking about the results, meaning who wins. It's the result of that whole epicenter of what's happening and how that is connecting to other timelines. And there was a group of people trying to analyze if this happened, what would we do? And all of these things. I wasn't even allowed to see any of the details. At one point I was told you're not supposed to be here because I was essentially remote viewing is what it is to make you understand. So on this timeline, this woman works kind of like an administrative job. I'm being very vague on purpose. And she doesn't like her job. She feels very bored, feels unfulfilled. And she says she really wants to help humanity. She feels very connected to this Pleiadian warrior lifetime. Everything I've told her in other other sessions, she's like, I know that's me, but why am I doing nothing in this timeline? Well, I was shown is that there are a lot of people in her job that she's working with, both clients and her coworkers, that she's tied to in a lower timeline. So there are, just like there are lines, there are lower timelines where the dark side's winning. So there are these lines that are of timelines where we are not sovereign and they are winning. And a lot of the people that were enslaved in that timeline, she had met some of them here, and they were showing me the streets of homeless people, people on drugs, and the connection between the perceived NPCs now. Those same people are over there in those timelines, completely enslaved. They have no sovereignty, and now look at them in this timeline. It's overlapping and it's connecting and relaying. And so basically, what they told me is, for her specifically, you are in a timeline of administration, basically. So you're doing a lot of things in all these other lifetimes, but in this life, we need you to kind of be in the epicenter of a lot of these people that you can interact with that are connected to these other timelines, so you can help change the outcome over there by being who you are here. So it's boring to you here and you don't like it, but you don't understand the outcome and the difference that you're making over there that could then affect those homeless people here that are connected to those versions of those other people, or that are on drugs here, or that are completely checked out. So you're making a difference in a lower timeline to help this higher timeline. So there was so much more to it. I don't want to share too many details because I don't want anyone to figure out who I'm talking about. Not that anyone here would know, but I don't, in case her family is watching or something, if I give too many details.
Right.
But the idea is we're all connected. So the soul contracts that we have now, we're connected to people in other timelines that are in Atlantis, that are in Lemuria, that are in ancient Egypt. And it's so important how we act here and the choices that we make here, which ties into the Parsy interview, which maybe I should talk about that one next before I keep going, because it makes so much sense to me in my mind, but I want to relay it really properly here because this is so important that I want to make sure that everyone is following me.
Well,
Because
one second, Sherri. Can everybody hear Sherri? Okay, somebody said you're quiet. It sounds great to me, but just give us a thumbs up or something if you can hear her. Okay. Okay. Sorry.
You sound good to me.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
you're okay. I think it was just a little tech issue or something. But go
Okay.
ahead.
So if you don't mind, let me go back to the Parsy interview because I think that will help pull this together. So for those of the people, do you want to tell them what that interview was about?
Yeah, so it was actually a really powerful interview. It was a guy who's a lifelong experiencer who's been reaching out to us for quite some time to come on the show. And eventually, he was just persistent and not annoying, but like there was something to his story, right? So we finally had him on, and it was like kind of blew our minds. Like some of the stuff he was sharing from his regressions, and you could feel his authenticity in it, right? And he was talking about like a reptilian lifetime and just some other things that he remembered and what was happening in this reality. And it's a pretty impressive story, and it really is. It's getting great feedback, and obviously it's moving people because it caused you to have a recall. And Aaron, I don't know if you want to say anything about it, but I mean,
Repeat that one more time. Sorry.
no, I didn't know if you wanted to chime in on that on that interview about Parsy or not.
I mean, it was phenomenal. It was, yeah, I mean, his experiences are pretty mind-blowing, and I mean, it just, yeah, I mean, I don't know what else to say.
No, that's fine.
It
I
was
just didn't know if
fantastic.
you had anything to add to it, but
No, not really.
okay, we'll get back to Sherri then. So what happened after you watched that interview?
So I had a lot of activations while watching that video, and I had memory recall, but not about myself, but but really what I want to talk about is his connection to Persia. It's interesting because I've always been connected to the Middle Eastern culture. I've always, like, when I visualize what I think I'm supposed to look like, it's not me, but it's this, like, basically this Persian woman. And so my husband is Persian. And it's funny, he doesn't want to be called Iranian. Most people who connect to Persia don't like to be called Iranian for this exact reason. So I recalled this lifetime where my daughter and my husband were kind of like royalty in Persia, basically. And they were Zoroastrian, which is what he talked about. So this happened quite early on in the conversation, because most people don't even know what that is, and I've never met anybody that actually still or whose family still practices. So Zoroastrian it's not even a religion, it's a belief system. It's probably one of the most ancient belief systems there is, and it connects to ancient Persia. And it's good thoughts, good words, good deeds is the very simplistic premise of it, but it's a lot more than that. There's the good and the battle of the good. They believe in the battle of the good and the evil, and it's all about the choices that you make. And I have abided by that for my whole life. I've always thought, you can have good in you and you can have bad. I've been talking about that publicly for a long time, but the choices that you make matter. And that's how you can go to the light. Your choices can go to the light or they can go to the dark. We always have a choice. And I saw this lifetime where my husband and my daughter, now in this life, were brother and sister, and they were royalty. And my daughter's name was Zara in that life. And what is it? Zarathustra, I think it is the founder of Zoroastrianism. And she was named after him in that lifetime. And her great-great-grandfather was my father-in-law, my husband's father. So anyways, it's not really that relevant to explain all the details to everybody. I don't want to bore anyone. But I had this profound revelation of the family lineage and how we're connected now. And if anyone knows my daughter, they know, like, she thinks she's royalty now. She's, she thinks like the world revolves around her. And we're always like, were you a queen? Just tell everybody what to do. And she just has this like self-righteousness about her. And so a lot of things clicked and made sense to me about the Zoroastrian belief system and where we are and how it ties into today. And my last name is Divband, which is my husband's, and that actually means demon slayer. And so when I put all of this together, it makes total sense to me, my ancestry and my lineage and how I'm connected there. But to present day, the reason why that's relevant is when he was talking about the owl and the sun, I knew I had been there before. I was literally driving a car when I was listening to that interview, and I almost passed, like I almost just stopped. I was like so overwhelmed with this emotion, like I've been there too. So he's talking about the sun being the essentially like what the all or whatever they called it, like the essence. And I wrote about this in my book, Courage to Change the Freedom Movement. I talk about the sun rays, those beings that come from the sun, which is the universal heartbeat, the collective consciousness is stored, like that's where source is. So all of this, like I was like really like there was like fireworks of all of these connections going off during that interview, which is I even texted him Tyler afterwards, and I was like, this was so profound. So tie that in with all of these revelations that I've discovered in my sessions, I'm realizing that humanity right now is in this very specific juncture where our timelines are starting to converge and we are being presented with a choice. And Laura and I talked about this the other night and I had her on my channel. We have to make a choice. You need to choose between the good and the light or the dark. Which side are you on? And the choices that we make right now are going to propel us in one direction or the other. So our choices right now matter. Who we talk to matters. Who we're friends with, who we invite into our home, what we focus our attention on, what side is in the 3D. I always say, don't choose sides. I'm talking about 3D sides. When people are fighting, don't get in the middle. Don't take sides. Don't take the bait. That's what they want. That's how the 3D is designed, so that we make those choices through emotions. And then we end up going to the shadow side, to the dark side, because that's what they want. So right now, if we can have the collective really focus their mind on making choices that, when you realize from a macro perspective, are influencing not only you in this lifetime, but you and many other versions of you in other timelines, and they're all connecting right now. And this massive, which direction are we going? We can actually shift those other timelines where humanity is suppressed and it's a lower density timeline through this timeline elevating. So this is a dominant timeline. I've explained this in many different ways in presentations and in my books. There are dominant timelines, and then there are timelines that kind of fizzle out and they don't actually there isn't a lot of energy behind it, and at some point they cease to exist. They're
Yeah.
just, there's not a lot of amplification of energy behind it. And then there are dominant timelines like Lemuria, time of Yeshua, right now in this ascension period, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm having these sessions with people and I'm being shown specifically how they connect to these other versions of themselves and how it's affecting us now and how it's affecting them there. And I feel like this is such an important topic right now to get to start to discuss with you guys and those listening on the impact of our thoughts, our good thoughts, our good words, and our good deeds, which is essentially what Zoroastrianism is, the
Right.
fundamentals of it.
Right. So much of what you're saying is blowing my mind because I'm writing about that in my book right now. And like some of the exact concepts and stuff you're talking about, I've talked about already in my book, but worded slightly differently. So it just blows my mind because, it's everyone's coming to the same conclusions. We're starting to understand this is a much bigger picture, and this timeline stuff and these other dimensions and these parallel realities and parallel Earth, all these portals and all the stuff that is just not supposed to exist. It's actually really the name of the game. This is
Yeah.
how it's all being done. Time travel is real. It's not a theory. And it's, if you know where to look, the evidence is overwhelming. It's everywhere. But I think it's amazing that you're sharing all this right now. And I do want to take this political just for a second because,
Uh-oh.
well, so we all know Daryl James. We love him. He's a great friend of ours, a SSP whistleblower, if you don't know who he is. He talked about being at the veteran gym in St. Petersburg, Florida. He's a Navy veteran and he works out at the VA gym. And he overheard some people talking and he overheard the conversation and went something like this. Hey, you're from the future, right? How did you know that? Because we worked in the same program together, blah, blah. He overheard him. Well, long story short, one of these guys ended up being Daryl's neighbor that he became friends with. And he went out to IHOP with him, ate breakfast with him, and they were talking about just all this kind of stuff. And the election fraud came up. And the guy got real nervous because apparently this guy and the other guy, they jumped ship from a collapsing timeline they worked for a corporation that had a time travel technology. And they actually came to this timeline because it had been solidified. And they had to come back before Trump got into office again. And and it was because he got real nervous about the election fraud. He goes, "You don't know what that means. You don't know why they did that." And basically what he said was that the reason they had to blatantly cheat in 2020, like overtly, doesn't matter what people see or hear, we got to get in. He said it because if Trump were to get in, their literal timeline would collapse. But they manipulated it so they can continue that timeline for 4 more years. Well, it's at the breaking point again. So these guys had to come back from the future to the time to 2022 or whatever it was. And in this four-year window before Trump gets back in, before that timeline collapses because they saw it collapsing. And it's just really interesting. Like, Daryl just talks about this stuff nonchalantly. I'm like, wait, this is kind of a big deal here, you know? And we hear this stuff, but we forget about it. So anyway,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's such a perfect example. And that actually reminded me, Laura and I spoke right before we talked because she did this emergency psychic surgery on me. God bless her. And what she saw was that there was this convergence of like she was shown like a bunch of like something matrix like all these wires coming together, and like the dark side is they're trying to converge the timelines, to their benefit, and I'm blocking them. I'm not saying I have all this power. We all individually and collectively are doing our part in blocking them is what I try to say. I don't want to ever sound like have a big ego because I promise you I don't. But basically because I'm working and public speaking and I'm helping children and I'm helping adults, I am pulling those timelines basically from them, and they're trying to stop me. So their timeline convergence is way different than the timeline convergence that I'm seeing. So they have their agenda, we have our agenda, and they're different. And so all these people are playing out their roles exactly how you just said to ensure that this dominant timeline stays at a certain frequency, and we keep activating and awakening humanity, because if we activate and awaken people here, we can activate and awaken those same people that have been in the slave system someplace else. So if you're in a lifetime right now with somebody, the reason this is so important is I want this to get personal, and I want to give examples so it activates something within people. If you have a brother that you hate, or a narcissistic spouse, or you were abused by your mother, and a million other examples I could give, I want people to think about the reason why you guys are put together. There could be such a huge purpose that is connected to this another timeline where you guys are together playing different roles or similar roles, and how you guys figure this out here or don't figure it out, or whatever happens here can affect over there. So it helps people to be more mindful about, okay, I can't change my narcissistic father, but I can create boundaries and not allow him to stop what I'm trying to do. You know, so it shifts your thought process and the choices that we make, and who we allow into our life and who we don't. So one really crazy example, I have so many, I have like 6 or 7 here, but I want to give, there was this one. So I have this man that is in the northern states of the country. I'll just say Montana, because you'll be able to figure it out. And I don't think this would be giving anything away. I saw this man from another universe. When I did his soul reading, I'm like, you are not from this universe. And when you came into, and you were kind of like a guardian of new universes or aspects of universes. And this particular man is connected to the consciousness of Tiamat. So when Tiamat broke off, who is the life giver of all, or many, not all, she created, Gaia was created when they split off of Tiamat. His soul chose, a fractal of his soul, a large fractal of his soul, chose to become a guardian of Gaia because of his connection to Tiamat. So from the time Gaia was created, he has been a guardian on this planet for millions of years, and he has not left. So could he be considered indigenous? Sure. But he has merged his consciousness with the earth elementals. So he has many lifetimes or many versions of himself as Sasquatch or a fairy. And in this particular life, he lives in Montana because he's a guardian of the Nirumbi. I wrote it down because I didn't want to say it wrong. The Nirumbi tribe. Have you guys heard of the little people?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I've heard of the little people. I didn't know they were called the Narubi
Well,
tribe.
I don't know. There's probably more than one type of little people, but this particular Nirumbi tribe is connected to the indigenous people of this particular part of Wyoming and Montana. So this is where it gets crazy. He's been communicating with the little people time, and he's had many lifetimes as just a tree or a rock or just water. So he's very connected and very in tune with the earth. He does not he's never really felt like he fit in here since he was a little boy. All he wants to do is be out in nature. And to heal himself, he goes up into the mountains and comes back down, and he says, I feel better. So I'm like, let me see what's going on. So he's connected to this Nirumbi little people tribe who are 5th dimensional beings. And just like anyone, doesn't matter who we are, there are good and bad. Well, this Nirumbi tribe at some point split, and there were the good ones and the bad ones, if we want to just make it very blanket right now. A very elementary explanation. And the dark ones started working with the 4th dimensional beings and wanted to take over the sacred sites so that they could have control. So it was a power thing. And they started to go to be more dark. So there lies their Zoroastrian choice. They went to the dark instead of the light. And so now there were 2 factions of this tribe. Well, in this lifetime, this man and his father struggled their whole lifetime. And his father is one of those little people, or the Nirumbi tribe, that is on the dark side. And he wants these portals and these sacred sites for them. And now they're in this life together as father and son trying to work this out. And his father, he's passed on now, and he did everything his whole life to put his son down. Never wanted him to inherit the land that they had. I mean, it's just one thing after another. They clashed their whole lifetime. And what I discovered in that life is that the dad was part of this Nirumbi tribe, and in this lifetime, he's trying to make sure that his son didn't do his job of being a guardian of these portals in this life to make sure that these sacred sites remain untouched. And so there's so much more to it than that. But there's the reason why him and his father had such a tumultuous relationship. And right now, I couldn't even see where this man, once he crossed over, he is reunited with the Narumbi tribe, the darker ones, and they're in the fourth. But I couldn't see where they weren't. They were hidden. It was like I wasn't invited to go in. And honestly, I didn't want to go there anyways. But he has now reunited and he's made his choice. Now he's back with them. His whole life, this man has struggled. And through the session we did together, we were able to identify and figure out why and the reasons behind it and his role in this life and what he's here to do and why he's in that land and why he's protecting it. So that's many dimensions, many lifetimes, because there were many times he did that. So that's another example that I wanted to share.
Yeah, and it's interesting about the little people. So there's in Mexico, they're called the Alushas, the little people. They're like little people. And my friend who was born and raised in Cancun, he told me about them. He was like,
Yeah.
everyone there knows they're real. Like it's not even a theory. Like, and if they basically they protect the land. And if you try to build somewhere without getting their permission and building an altar, like things just go bad. And they'll
Yeah.
like come and destroy the job site, whatever. And like, and the times that they haven't done it, it's been major damage, bridges have collapsed and all this stuff. Anyway, it's interesting that they're little people. And then you're mentioning that these little people, guardians of the portals, right? How the little people got assigned, maybe because they can stay hidden easier. I don't know. But it's really interesting. It's a fascinating concept to think about, these little people guarding these portals.
I mean, I think they reside in the fifth dimension and they're guarding the portals that interface between the third and the fifth. So they're guarding to make sure. And this fourth dimension that's in between is where some of them have now decided to reside. And so they're trying to steal the portals for them. It's just like this crazy, again, these astral wars that are taking place and how they relate to people here. And why do people incarnate? Why do so many people feel like they don't belong, that they're different, that nothing they do is right. Nothing they do is fulfilling because they are truly not from here. And they come in here and they volunteer to be guardians, to be grid workers, to be light workers, to do ancestral healing. Oh my gosh, I have so many examples of ancestral healing, but I want to talk about this one woman in Hawaii who I've also been working with for years. She's connected to Lemuria, and she goes in and she swims and heals the ocean by going in and swimming early morning, and she places crystals. And these crystals are placed in these certain rocks and she's guided to go there. Well, there's another version of her in Lemuria as a high priestess, and the exact spots that she's placing these crystals underwater are above water and that I could see. And there are these sacred temples there that she is a guardian of, that she works in, and they are under attack. And so in this timeline, they're underwater, but they still connect. And so she's here as a guardian or gatekeeper. And so she's guided to put these crystals that are charged with Lemurian frequencies, and she puts them and embeds them in the coral, and it's healing. The energy here is healing the energy there, and they're both connected. It's like these portals of energy are created, and she is the kind of the emissary between the two. So, and I've seen a lot of that. I have probably a dozen clients in Hawaii that are doing similar things in different places near volcanoes, et cetera, et cetera. So a lot of the people are working to guard the land and the sacred sites, the portals, the vortexes, in forests, in oceans, in deserts. So there's a lot of that going on. How much time do we have? I have a few more examples I can give.
Plenty of time. Sorry, I wasn't trying to be rude. I was trying to look up
Half
something
hour at least.
Okay.
Do you have to go somewhere?
Me? No. I just
Oh.
want to make sure no one's bored. Are people interested in what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
no, sorry. I
Oh,
was
yeah.
literally trying to look up something to like validate what you were saying, but go ahead. I wasn't trying to be rude.
Are you fact checking me, Tyler?
No, I'm trying to add to something, but I couldn't
I'm
remember
kidding.
anyway.
I'm totally messing with you. Okay, so this is a crazy one. I don't know a lot about Anunnaki. My husband's like a super huge interest in Anunnaki. Again, I don't research. But I had a session with a woman recently who lives in the US. That's all I'll say. She has 3 children and a husband, 2 kids with this man, 1 in a previous marriage. This is extremely crazy. So her husband is kind of like this womanizer in this life. And he is like flamboyant, charismatic, outgoing, like really well-spoken type of guy, but kind of this like superiority complex. And there's a lot of stuff I could say. I just don't want to get too specific in her life in case people hear this that could know. Her husband, he is connected to the Anunnaki ancestry. So he's Anunnaki essentially. And basically, he was around during a period of time, as well as his family, like his dad and as far back as it goes, where the Anunnakis, here we go, there's a split between we want to help the people and we don't want to. I'm not getting into no little Enki argument. I'm not even using their names. I'm just saying that there was a period where some wanted to help the people, the humans that were created, and some didn't. And her husband happened to be the one that felt that they were gods and superior. So they've carried this throughout their lineage of looking at women as sexual beings for their benefit, and taking advantage, and like this god complex superiority. And somewhere along the line, he became a hybrid with a reptilian. And her son can see her dad as a reptilian, and the wife can see her husband as a reptilian with a tail, and a little bit afraid of him. So long story short, she's connected to Andromeda and also connected to Lyra. And so she has two of her children come in to help be her guardians, to protect her from his ancestry, because she's been attacked a lot through her lifetime. And her son is connected to him, and he's kind of mirroring him and his behavior. And here goes the Zoroastrian connection again, because this lifetime, what's going on is he still has a connection to the Anunnaki ancestors, both good and light. And right now he is channeling both, because she said, I see the good in him, I see the dark in him. Well, this guy wants to get into politics, and he's very, he's someone that wants to be involved in everything, and she's like, but I think he's doing it for the wrong reasons. Well, I said, well, it looks like the darker aspects of the Anunnaki lineage that he's connected to are pulling him into being more of this arrogant, God complex, self-fulfilling, service to self motivated person. But he still has this connection to the good side. And right now he's being used as a pawn for them to do the work that needs to be done here, both good and bad, depending on where he's connected to. And his wife is in his life right now to help influence the good to come out of him. So that's why she's staying with him, so that she helps, by her mentality and her frequency, she can be that bridge to like pull him to be good. Because if she pulls him to be good in this life, he has the potential of going into politics and doing really good. And that will also influence the Anunnaki timeline of what he's doing over there. Does that make sense?
So basically,
Yeah.
she has to stay in a miserable relationship
Yeah.
to save the timeline.
Well, I'm not going to give too much detail, but yes and no. And that's all I'm going to say. I'm not going to tell you what I told her, because that's too specific. But let's just say she needs to be with him a little bit longer, and then by that time he needs to make a choice. And that choice it's not on her, it's on him, and then other things will occur. Because there are expiration dates and times for some of these things, which is sorry to interrupt you, Tyler, but this is important, because if people shouldn't feel obligated. Like we should not bear the responsibility or the burden to make our siblings, our parents, our children, our spouse do certain things. Just because we might be in this timeline and have a soul contract with somebody to hopefully influence them in a positive way, it's at the end of the day, it's not our responsibility or our burden, but we do everything we can. And if it gets to a point where they're clearly not playing their end of the bargain, they're not fulfilling their role, then we have to make a choice as, okay, how far am I willing to let this go? And is it detrimental to me or my children or whomever is around? And then you have to make that tough choice of, okay, now I'm creating boundaries. Now I'm protecting myself. And now I'm going to reevaluate. That's really important. And that's where we are right now, where people are deciding, who do they want to stay married to? Who are they going to allow? Are they going to allow their siblings to continue to walk all over them? Are they going to allow their children to do this to them? and many more examples. Right now, people are being faced with that choice. Good thoughts, good words, good deeds. What are we going to do? How are we going to react?
Right.
Yeah, beautifully said.
And so, okay, let's go back to this guy who's a politician, right? And there's other aspects of him and other timelines, realities, past lives, whatever, that are influencing his behavior here. So I guess the simple solution to that would be ancestral healing. Now, or not, would you agree?
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
for him to make a change, obviously, like she needs to be there in his life to create that balance. But like him also remembering who he was and healing those aspects of himself is like crucial to the story, right?
Yeah. Yes. Thank you for bringing that up. The healing in this lifetime is pivotal because this is the dominant timeline. So hopefully what the choices he makes and how he heals in this timeline will affect the channel and what he's connected to in the other timeline. So by birthing a daughter and a son, one of those children is connected to him with the same DNA, same epigenetics, same cellular memory. So this child is mirroring him on purpose. So he's kind of looking like he's following in his direction, scaring the mom a little bit. But what I told her is he is a mirror. I should have said that. The child is a mirror for the father to see his behavior. And our children come in to help us heal and to help us change and to become better versions of ourselves and to bring out parts of us that we don't necessarily like. And we're like, gosh, I don't really like that about myself. Just like the wife was there to be a positive example. For example, why are you getting into politics? Well, what's your theme? Like, what are the things that you'd like to change? Well, I don't know. Well, let's think about that. What's your platform? What do you think is wrong? What do you think is right? What could we do better? And she's asking all the right questions, planting all the right seeds, but ultimately it's his decision on what's his incentive. Like, why is he actually doing this? Does he want money? Does he want power? Is this about greed, or is this about actually being of service to humanity? She's
Right.
telling me, I think he's on the fence. So I say, well, you're doing everything right. You're asking all the right questions. You're supporting, you're playing a supportive role. Your children are there to influence him and to help him heal and activate. But ultimately, he has to do the work too. And so there's only so much you guys can do. But ancestral healing, and I talked about this in my last two books, that is really big. So there are a lot of women specifically, I'm not saying men aren't doing it, but I'm going to use the example of the womb. And I think I presented on this in the last conference with you guys. A lot of women are using their womb to heal in this life. So through menstruation, like just regular menstruation periods that we have every month, we are shedding past traumas of our ancestors, of the divine feminine womb trauma, childbirth, enslavement, incest, all the things. And some women are taking a little bit more on and they develop cysts, and some of them are getting cancer. Some of them have to have hysterectomy. Some of them can't bear children. Some of them are healing through childbirth. So there's a million and two explanations or examples I can give you. But women in this timeline are utilizing their womb to heal hundreds and thousands of women before them by bearing different experiences or opening up birth portals or not opening up birth portals. And they're healing the womb. So they are participating in ancestral healing. Men are doing the same thing in different ways. I had a woman, a session the other day, she's an earth angel. And her husband's side of the family, everyone got lung cancer. And they were of a generation of, nobody talks back, do what you're told, you work until you die, nobody cries, nobody, and so every single man in their life, in their lineage was getting lung cancer. And basically what we discovered is that the reason why her siblings were getting lung cancer, girls and boys, was they're putting a stop to the ancestral lineage. They're stopping it now by getting it, transmuting it, and processing it, healing from it, making different choices. It stops with them so that the future generations of children coming in, the epigenetics have now shifted because they signed on to get the cancer. That's the difference in the lungs, whereas the other ones got it out of trauma and holding it in and not healing from it. And it just kept getting passed down through cellular memory. This lineage, this group got it on purpose. And this woman, being an earth angel, was always the nurse to everybody, took care of everybody. Everybody was always sick. Everybody's dying in her life. Why is everybody dying in my life? Why is everybody always sick? Why is everybody getting cancer? Am I being punished? No, you have to look at it completely the other way. You have the soul contract to help these people go through this experience, regardless of if they survive or not. Not everybody is meant to survive. And this is the hardest part about being a human in this incarnation, in this life, is that some of us do sign on to transmute a lot of trauma through death, not only for ourselves, but for our families. So not everybody is meant to make it. It's not nefarious. It's not 3D interference. It's not some horrible thing like the curse. Sometimes we do that on purpose. And so I was trying to explain to this woman that your brother didn't make it because X, and your father didn't make it because he was doing this, but your sister has lung cancer now. I believe that she's supposed to persevere through this and transmute it, and she probably will make it. And so it's all about how we look at things. And it's not always we're being punished. It's not always negative karma. I think we're moving past that. And we have a lot of beautiful souls that are coming into this timeline with great sacrifice, with incredible journeys that are not easy. And right now, because there's just so much heightened drama in our reality, and it's just going to get more in the next few months, people are losing hope. And they're contacting me, and the voice of God technology and the parasitic kind of mentality of affirmations and satellites and all of this that's being emitted is really hooking onto people, because people are losing hope and they're worried and they're frustrated. Why am I alone? Why are most starseeds alone? Why can't they have a family themselves? Why do they not have children? Why do they feel abandoned? Why are they the only one in their community that will talk about this stuff? And then they contact me and they're suicidal. I feel like I've failed my mission. No, you haven't failed your mission. If you think about the collective starseeds as columns in a coliseum, we are the pillars that hold everything up. We stand in our integrity, we stand in our light. It's lonely a lot of times because we're the only ones foreseeably around us, but we anchor our light. We have a transmission to the galactic. We have our pillar of light, which is our body, our conduit, and then we connect deep into the earth. And we have this beautiful cosmic and universal connection, and we're all connected, but we're all separated at the same time. And we feel like we're the only ones. And where is everybody else? And why am I being punished? But if you look at the macro again, and you look out, we're just pillars of light, all spread out all over the place, so that the foundation is strong, so that we can hold the space, so that people around us can activate and awaken every single day, every single moment. People are waking up, they're activating, they're finding their truth, they're looking, and they want their sovereignty to be activated again. They realize that the free will is convoluted, and they're making different choices, and it's having an effect on the other timelines. And so this convergence of negative convergence that they want, because they're pulling all the timelines in because they know they're losing. And they're like, well, if we could get everybody lump sum into the dark frequency of disillusionment and loss of hope and enslavement, and hijack our minds into thinking that we lost and that we're not winning, then that's how they pull all of our timelines to their benefit. But people like me and you, through various methods, watching this, are doing the opposite. We're pulling the timelines this way, and we're and that's why I was being attacked, because they don't want me to talk about this. They don't want us to bring this message out, so that people listening to this right now are like, thank you so much. Now I understand. Now I have hope. And now we shift the collective consciousness even more, and those columns of light get even more illuminated. They don't want that.
Wow. Beautifully put. Beautifully put. And I couldn't agree more. That so they trick us into believing that we're losing. That's actually something that I think we should focus on, because there are influencers, channelers, people out there right now that are getting information from the other side, from ETs, that are not the future, the positive timeline message. Let's just put it that way. And I think it's all like, we have to realize the magnitude of this war and the length that these entities will go to. They are manipulating channelers and psychics and working through even tarot. I mean, all kinds of things. You don't think people aren't going to start getting bad information about another negative timeline, right? That's because they need us to co-create that timeline for them.
They know our beliefs are what create reality. So what is that? If our beliefs are what create reality, they know they have to get us to believe what they want us to believe. So how do you do that? You convince us of what they want us to believe, you know, by telling us things, by using these influencers, people in these so-called positions of authority in whatever way that is, to tell us what is going on, and then we buy into it. We bought it hook, line, and sinker. That's the whole game. That's the whole game. So if they can get you to believe something, you gotta really use your discernment and what are the fruits of me believing this is, and use that with everything in your life, no matter where it's coming from. What are the fruits of me buying into this? If it's not already like an evident reality of something, obviously that's different. But if it's something like coming from a channeler, from someone that's so-called the galactic, you know, whatever, and they're just telling you information, but it has this dark overtone, this hopeless overtone, this, oh my God, we're losing. Oh my God, people aren't waking up fast enough. The light isn't winning. You know, this kind of like, you can tell when it's not empowering. Is it empowering? Is it love-based, or is it more fear-based? That's how you know you're being manipulated. Anything true is not going to be getting you to buy into a fear-based reality,
Right.
because that's not the truth. The ultimate truth is love
Yep.
and oneness, the law of one, right? So fear is an
Yeah.
illusion. Fear is a pure illusion. So anything trying to get you to buy into any kind of fear-based belief is a lie. Full stop.
Well, and also there's inversion happening. And
Yeah.
sorry, Sherry, I'll let you take over. And I'm just going to name drop Bashar. Uh, he just over the weekend spoke somewhere, and the video's kind of going semi-viral, right? Where he was asked about politics, and he said he was channeling, right? He said,
Mhm.
we don't typically chime in about this stuff, but since you asked, whatever, we'll tell you. And he said that if the female, he wouldn't use names, but if the female wins, it'll lead to open contact and freedom and all this. And he goes, and if the male wins, it'll lead to the termination of the United States in World War III. So he's presenting this information to an entire audience who's potentially believing him
So people,
because it's
right,
being
same thing.
channeled. But that doesn't mean just because you're a channeler that you're channeling good information. This is an
Right,
information war. So literally he's telling his audience that Kamala needs to win because that will lead to open contact. And like it's the exact inverted reality, right?
yeah, it's
And
the same thing the
like
media does. It's the same thing we see, everything we're bombarded with. Here's what we want you to believe. Here's what we want you to believe. Well, that's what he's now doing
right.
too. And that doesn't mean he's always been, because 95% or more of everything I've heard from him has been amazing and spot on. But that's been more, I haven't heard more recent stuff. So maybe recently something else has come in and hijacked, you
Well,
know.
that's what I'm saying. You just don't know right now.
Right.
And so that's why you just like just because, oh, I heard it from a channeler doesn't mean like that's them trying to salvage a timeline. And at any cost, they'll use
Right.
people. People are being used to deliver messages on their behalf.
Right.
Go
Yeah.
ahead, Sherry.
No, this is so important that you're saying this. Laura and I just talked about it the other night on my channel, about these spiritual red flags. And you know, at the root of it, it's all about division. You know, the more that we come together as a community, our ancestors didn't watch TV. They sat outside by the fire and they would talk and share information. And the elderly were with the children, passing down critical information and just all this knowledge, right? And it was knowledge based, and it was just so different. The times are different now, and they can't have us connecting. They don't like Journey to Truth community. They don't like these beautiful communities because they're like, oh, hold on, too many people now are coming together. And so they try to kibosh it, or whatever the word I'm trying to think of. That was like my
That's right.
grandmother's word.
Don't
Like
use
my
it.
grandma said that. I'm old. They try to insert, you know, people that either start out as pure intent, they have pure intent, which I believe most people do start out in this type of thing, starting a podcast, going into public speaking, writing books. But it's somewhere along the line, if you're able to hook someone's ego, there's two
Yep.
ways:
Ego.
money, and the ego.
Mhm.
And I don't care about money, and I could care less if I'm liked by the popular kids. And so like that's why they try to come after me, and they're like, well, we can't entice Sherri with money and power because I don't care about those things. But there are very few people that feel that way. And so eventually these people get these likes and they get a little bit of money and they get endorsements and next thing, and now they're popular and people are like, oh my gosh, that, you know, they know their name and it gets to their head. And then eventually, like if there's a crack in their integrity field, then they can insert, and then they start to feed in the little bit of lies, and they're all over the place, unfortunately. And then I believe there are those that are blatantly, they're just plants and they are here to give us false information. I've never channeled in my life. I call it channeling because I communicate telepathically, but I've never let any being come in. And right now, I think it's more dangerous than ever before to allow that. You have to be really careful, and you have to have these spiritual red flags. You have to know. And we even said, Laura and I said on my channel, you might have been, I have people that say, oh, I've been watching you for 5 years and you're the only person I trust. And I'm like, well, first of all, thank you so much for saying that. But you shouldn't trust me or anybody 100%. You have to be on your discernment all the time, because you never know what could happen. I'm not trying to say that it just, you never know.
Right.
You never know what's going to happen. And so you always have to listen to everybody with one eye open and be like, I'm not sure. That doesn't quite resonate with me. So if someone like Bashar, I don't like using names, but in this case I will. You go in there and you got your heart open and you're really, oh, I've been listening 10 years and oh, I love him. I love everything that he has
Put
to
him on a
say.
pedestal,
Put him on
right?
a pedestal, then
Mhm.
your guard is down, and then you don't know what that might be said that may be false, and it might be one thing out of the entire speech. But if you're not paying attention and you're not using discernment and you're blindly following, well, then you're now victim to that. So we have to be so diligent. And this goes for everybody. There's nobody that I trust 100% fully and completely, and as it should. And I'm not saying that because I'm being like negative Nancy. You have to be guarded at all times. And that's really important right now. And the
I hope your
spiritual
husband's
red
not listening.
flags. What?
I hope your husband's not listening.
I got one eye open with him too.
You
No,
don't
I'm
trust me?
I mean, obviously the closest ones to us, but the spiritual red flags are a big one. Like there are so many red flags that we talked about that people should be aware of. One is just trusting your gut, and we always second guess, like, oh man, I knew that. I felt that person was off and I didn't listen to myself. And we're like, well, okay,
Right.
dust yourself off and you'll do better next time. That's fine. Don't go into the guilt spiral, because that will get you in a loop that
Well,
I've talked about many times.
and you just learned a valuable lesson. You just about giving your power away and
Right.
not fully trusting in everyone. It sucks that we're at a place where you can't trust, but I mean, ultimately, it makes sense. You have to have your boundaries, right? And this isn't like I keep saying, this is information warfare. So, and what happens is when people get enamored with the information, they're out of their, the Native American three brains, your gut, your heart, and your logical mind. Well, once you're bombarded with so much information, you have to compartmentalize that. You have to file it somewhere. And you're like, wait, well, what's true? What's true? You're confused. You don't know what to believe. And you're starting to connect dots and corroborate. Oh, she said this, so that must mean her testimony is real, even though you're only basing it on information data points, and you've
Right.
completely been tricked and manipulated, even if you might have even
Mhm.
done it to yourself, away from your intuition, away from using your guts. So a lot of these researchers who are like validating some of these experiencers, they're such researchers that they're only focusing on the
The
information.
information, that's
They
it.
don't, their body has stopped telling them what's bullshit and not. And they're
Mhm.
only connecting 3D data points that can make sense to from their 3D perspective. We have to get away from that. Like you have to be able to just feel somebody, be in their presence,
Feel
look
their
at
energy.
yeah, look at their
Right.
picture, and they tells you
Look at
an
their picture.
entire yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
it tells you an entire story. And if you can listen to that gut reaction immediately without second guessing yourself, then you can save yourself a lot of heartbreak and a lot of time and a lot of deception, because you're now listening and trusting yourself.
Absolutely. And
And
I told,
oh, sorry, just real quick. And they will use many tricks. I've noticed a lot of these people, they're really good at psychologically manipulating people and almost like putting these spells on people. So like, and like
yeah,
using even like neuro linguistic programming and things like that, where like people get like in this trance by what they're saying and how they're speaking.
yeah.
And then through that, that's when they put in the information and what they want you to, again, what they want you to believe, and then they got you. And people get, I can see it. It's like people are like under this spell.
It's
Yeah.
It's like a spell,
it's a literal enchantment spell. Like
right?
it's a real thing. They're
Right.
enchanted, and then it's such comes with a powerful energy. But what were you gonna say, Sherry?
I was just going to say to what you were saying. Yeah, I always coach people, it doesn't matter if you're in person or someone's on stage or you're watching them through a podcast or you're listening to them through Audible, you don't see them. Close your eyes and your body will always gives a response of truth or not truth. So if you're listening to
Mhm.
somebody speak right now, you can try it, listening to me and be like, how is Sherri making me feel when she's speaking? Don't even listen to the words that are coming out. Does she make me feel safe? Does she make me feel like, oh yeah, that's in resonance with my truth? And you can do that exercise with literally anybody. It doesn't even matter who it is, a school teacher. It could be anybody, but we can exercise that part of ourself, that subtle part, our physiological response to truth and not truth is really powerful. And I've listened to some people, there's a few podcasts that I watch, mostly yours, but there are a few others, very few. And the other day I was super excited because this person had a new person on their show. I don't give names. And I couldn't, and this was like a really well-known person I had never heard of, but apparently I literally had to turn it off within 3 minutes. Like just the sound of their voice was so disruptive for me. It didn't even matter what they were saying. And they could be a good person. Doesn't necessarily mean anything bad, but I couldn't, I literally had to turn it off. And I'm like, sorry, I'm not even going to listen to that. So that's a sign too. It may not be that they're bad, but it could be there's some interference there, or there's something that's disruptive that I'm being protected from hearing. It's shielding. I don't know what it is, but if people don't trust it, then
Mhm.
they, you don't know what can happen.
It could
Well,
even be they don't even know they're being used by something else. And I think that happens a lot. Like
that's true.
people assume a lot that just because like either whether it's a handler or whether it's a controlled opposition or whatever term you want to, somebody that's working on behalf of the dark, that they know fully what they're doing, and they're no. A lot of times it doesn't work that way. A lot of times they have no idea. They think they're doing a great thing and they think they're doing something else, but they're actually being manipulated by some kind of dark force to do their bidding kind of for them
Right, through their ego type of thing.
through the
So
ego, usually almost
let's
always.
let's talk about, okay, going back to um how they're gonna like the at the beginning you were talking about the attacks to stop you from talking and what that looks like. So I want to talk about something that I've experienced. They don't always attack you personally. A lot of times, an attack will show up in the form of new people entering your lives. And I know you touched on this earlier a little bit, Sherry, but like I can't stress enough to be careful who you allow into your life right now, because sometimes they work through the other people who aren't maybe as spiritually enlightened or whatever, as protected as you are, and they have their guard down, and so they'll work through the people that have their guard down to come into your life and dangle something in front of you that they know will distract you. And it might be an old craving, an old habit, or something that you're like, oh, wow, or this really weird. This person's showing up back in my life again. Really pay attention to that and ask questions, because you and you know what you want and what you don't want. And sometimes things that you don't want are dangled in front of you because you used to want them and they
Yeah.
used to control you. And so you have to really think about where this stuff is coming from and how this entire system, how everyone is being mind controlled and manipulated to do their bidding, right? And I don't know if you want to add to that.
Yeah, that's a really important point. And I did a video last summer or 2 summers ago where I talked about that exact thing. And I said, you may be strong in your integrity and you may do a lot of spiritual protection and your spiritual hygiene is on point. But if they can't get to you, they will just to get to you. That's just how they work. So if they're like, all right, well, Sherri's auric field is too strong. And unfortunately for me, they always go to my daughter. That Aramis is getting attacked her whole life. And the crazy thing is I don't want to use her name because I'm not sure if this is public information, but I was talking to a friend and, you know, the same thing was said to her about like, I'm gonna ruin you through your son by, you know, something like that. Like they were going through the child. And so I've had to really hype up my protection on my children and teach them how to protect themselves. And now that my daughter's 10, like she's a warrior, like excuse my language, but she's a little badass now. Like she doesn't take anything. And I'm like, man, like she's really coming into her own and she doesn't get attacked anymore. But when she was young and vulnerable, like, you know, like it was a really rough period of like 7 years for me, because they would always go through her. And they do that to me all the time. I always get people that come into my life, and the classic thing is, oh, you know, I've heard you've been hurt before. I'm going to be your friend, and I support you, and I think you're amazing, and I'm going to do everything for you. Not everything. I want to be there for you. And I've heard it all before. It's like it's kind of comical at this point. And every single time within a certain period, a couple months or a year, they turn on me out of nowhere and very abruptly. And now I laugh at it because I'm just like, seriously, again. And it's sad because, you know, when you have people in your life, other people in your life get to know them. So my kids sometimes get to know these people. And they're like, oh, when is so-and-so going to come back? Or how are they doing? And they get invested. And then, oh, well, that person's not in our life anymore. Well, what happened? Why? So now I really have to be careful who I even let around. First of all, not many people come in my home, but even just like through Zoom, or they'll talk to my children, they'll come in the room and, oh, yeah, hi, you know, they'll talk to them. I have to be so careful. And we all should be, because if the people that we surround ourselves are not really taking it serious and not up to par on their spiritual hygiene and creating boundaries and protecting themselves, oh, they are the perfect target to go through and get to you, and they will do horrible things to you. They'll backstab you. They'll say mean things, or whatever it is that they can do. And a lot of times it's not even them, it's entities working through them. And that's the unfortunate part about it. So you have to be really careful.
Yeah, absolutely. So we can keep talking about that, but I want to ask you if you had any other stories or sessions that you wanted to share, or
I
did you
have so
kind of,
many. You
or
want to
did,
talk about Egypt real quick?
sure.
I had this session. Okay. I wasn't going to say this one because this is controversial, because everybody believes they were Cleopatra, or everyone believes that they were
Right.
like
Well,
Nefertiti, right?
Millions of people think
th-
they're all the same
there was
person.
actually,
Yeah.
ironically, speaking about Cleopatra, there's a past life club in California. Like these
Yeah.
people get together and they talk about their past lives, and they had this is not even a joke. They literally had a get together, a party where you come dressed as who you were in your past life, and there were like multiple Cleopatras.
Oh gosh.
And so, I
Yeah.
mean, what does that tell you? And we've talked about this before. Like
I,
it's more of a blueprint that people tap into because they
Mhm.
have to, like, it helps them get prepared for their life on Earth to be downloaded with Earth's history.
It's a blueprint.
Yeah, yeah,
Right.
yeah. So
Yeah.
anyway,
Yeah.
go ahead and go
Yeah.
on. I love the
Well,
controversial stuff, so bring it on.
yeah. Well, so in this case, I was actually surprised. I'm not saying that my client, this person that I work with is Nefertiti, but what I saw is, so this is a long story, so I want to make it really short. She was raised, she's not in the United States. I don't even want to see where she is. And she was raised by an abusive father. I'm talking really bad, like SRA type abuse, not that to that extreme, but kind of. Um, and her mother killed herself when she was young. And she was telling me all of these details, and she's been obsessed with Nefertiti. Her dad took her to Egypt on a trip when they were young, which was a big deal because they were poor, how they afforded it or why they went. But he made a point to point out to her this whole area that was dedicated to Nefertiti, and made a point to show it to her, which she thought was weird at the time. But she said she had a visceral and physical reaction at like 9 years old, and she has been obsessed with her ever since. So she believes that she's that. And so I'm thinking in my mind, oh my gosh, how am I going to tell this woman that she's not Nefertiti? Like, because, you know, like I can't just lie to her and be like, yeah, you are. So I go into my session, and because I usually pause the meeting for about 20 minutes, and I go into my meditative state. I call on their higher self, and I have a direct connection. And I'm like, oh my God, what am I going to hear from this? Well, come to find out, her father in this life was a priest in that lifetime when Nefertiti and the king, Akhenaten, I can never say his name right, when he was poisoned, And because they didn't want the sun god to be worshipped. So this is, I don't want to get into Egyptian history, but basically what they were showing me is that right when he was killed, her father in this life was part of the group that killed the king by poisoning. But no one knows to this day, I don't think how he was killed, but they said that he was poisoned. And or something like that. And I don't have my main notes, but basically her dad in this life is connected to that version of himself. And she is not Nefertiti per se, but a fractal of Nefertiti because of her connections in other lifetimes to her and other aspects of this network of souls was inserted into her consciousness. So she is, in essence, a fractal of Nefertiti, but not the true one. Does that make sense? She's not her, but she embodies the essence or a fractal on purpose. So I've been told that Nefertiti has many fractals embedded in different versions, different people throughout the world on purpose. Like I used that example of the columns. Imagine Nefertiti on purpose inserting a fractal of her consciousness in certain people around the world to believe that they are her, because they're holding the space everywhere. Because when she disappeared, because she was being, they were going to kill her for the same reason. They didn't want them to worship the sun god. They wanted them to have this priesthood, just like what we're seeing now. And so she went, instead of Nefertiti actually dying, because they don't know where her body is, they showed me she went to a different dimension, and she just then went through a portal and disappeared, went to Sirius. This is not really relevant for everybody to know all of this, but what the point is, this woman is holding this essence of her, and because her father in the other lifetime did such a bad thing, and so now they're trying to weigh it out here in this lifetime by her working it out with her father, but he was clearly like pure evil in this lifetime. So now what she's supposed to do is heal from this experience and heal the ancestry. So she could heal the ancestry of her, not herself now. It connects to the timeline of Nefertiti and all of the ancestors that connect to her that may have been killed as a result of the priesthood taking over and all the wars that took place as a result of that. And so there's this connection. There's so much more to it. I just don't want to share too much. But this last thing I'll share, because it's important of what we were just talking about. Her dad somehow was able to connect her to someone in another country through the internet. I don't know if it was Facebook or what it was. And they had the same name. I won't say the name. And this guy lured her in and said that he was the king, Akhenaten, and that they were husband and wife, to affirm what she was already thinking. But I'm like, no. I was like, that guy is not. He is a pawn. He was brought forward by your father to make you feed into something. And then he abruptly broke up with her and said she was a liar. She is a bad soul. And all of a sudden 180 started attacking her and saying, you're not who you say you are. And I said, he was brought into your life to make you, because she was suicidal. She was like, I was going to kill myself. And I was like, you do not let them win in this life. You're not supposed to come out. Don't tell everybody who you are, but you're holding the space of the energy of Nefertiti so you can heal the lineage. So if you heal yourself through all these traumas that they put you through, and you don't let this person bring you down and devaluate who you believe you are, and you can grow from this and you can evolve spiritually, you help all the other columns, all the other versions of Nefertiti doing the same thing in their lifetimes, in their intimate circumstances, and then collectively you are helping the Egyptian timeline. Does that make sense? It's very complicated.
Oh, yeah.
But I was like, whoa, this is insane. So that was really crazy too. Honestly, I have thousands of sessions I could share with you guys. It's insane.
So the benefit of placing a fractal of your soul in multiple people in multiple timelines, essentially, I guess would be to keep that energetic footprint like grounded to this reality, right? Because for whatever reason, whatever signature, everything's frequency, whatever frequency that Nefertiti carries is crucial to the existence of Earth, let's just say. And
Right.
otherwise, like, what's the purpose if it's not like actually something crucial? Or if she's not in the timeline anymore, would it be detrimental to some agenda, right? I mean, there has to be a real reason why somebody would choose to, fragment their soul and place it in multiple people, unless there has to be a real reason for it. It's not just something you would do for fun, right?
Yeah, and and I'll give you another example that's really powerful, but it's to bring the divine feminine forward in this case because of her and what she represents and what was lost and what was taken and what was stolen from the people of Egypt during that period of time, during that era, and what resulted after that. So it's like, that's or Yeshua. Another example would be Yeshua, and a lot of people hold the Christ consciousness, which in essence is another fractal of Jesus or Yeshua, however you want to say. So now we have all these people carrying the Christ consciousness, that are to carry forward the vision and the information that he was trying to bring forward of we all are God and we can heal ourselves and not to look outside of ourselves and put people on the pedestal and all of this stuff. And the example I wanted to use besides Yeshua is my daughter. So, and I talked about this at your conference and the Artemis group. So Artemis, the goddess Artemis, fractaled herself and placed essences of her in a lot of the New Earth children. There's a group called the Artemis group that I believe I might be the only one that originally talked about it. Who knows who's talking about it today? And there are thousands of them. And they are a specific, they have to be female, and they're in this lifetime to carry forward the essence of Artemis. Just an essence. They still have their own soul, but it's that grandiose, like powerful divine feminine leader that are not going to be stopped, will not take no for an answer. They are very challenging, very difficult. I mean, I have support groups for Artemis because it's that difficult. If you guys you'll meet my daughter one day. She's chilled out a little bit, but they are like, they're just, there are no words. But why create such a being? Why do we need a fragment of Artemis here? Why do we need that? Because the divine feminine has been suppressed so much that we need what I think I embody, the divine feminine, much more peaceful energy. Like I'm the motherly, like healer energy. I'm opposite of that. I bring forward this warrior spirit that's connected to Persia. And that was this righteous Persian, like princess or whatever she was, now bringing in embodying the Artemis essence. And she's meant to be a future leader. But I'm talking about the leaders that don't take no for an answer, that will not let a man ever tell them they can't do something. And they're a movement. They represent something huge that's going to occur. And there are thousands of them all over the planet. I have met probably 30 of them that are my clients that are anywhere from the age of just maybe 2 to 40s. And they're all the same. It's like carbon copy personality. So that's another example of a Nefertiti, Yeshua, or an Artemis. Does that make sense? Why they would put that essence in many people?
Right. It sounds you're describing my niece. I wonder about her. Yeah, so that's fascinating. It really is fascinating to think about that, and these are important conversations to have because there are people out there that don't take it this far. They'll get information from a QHHT session or just any regression, right? And they'll hold on to it. And you have to really, you can't just trust that either. Like you really have to dissect this stuff and figure out how it fits in. Like, yeah, okay, you're getting this information, but what role is it playing? Is this really who I was, or is this a message that's trying to tell me something? And you have to really start digging deeper because you can't have 5 Cleopatras showing up at a party.
Yeah.
So you got to figure this stuff out. And it's fascinating. I think it's amazing that you're sharing this stuff.
Yeah, well, thank you guys for letting me come on. I mean, there's never a dull moment. I mean, I write a book and then like months later, I'm like, oh my God, I need to write another one. There's so much. I mean, it never stops. Like the amount of information my brain is filled with, I feel like I'm like the cloud and like I'm being pinged, like put more money in because you're you've taken up too much space. Like that's how I feel sometimes. I'm like, I need to tell somebody something or I'm going to burst because it's so much. Like at the end of the week, sometimes I feel like I just read a 1,000-page book because my brain is filled with so much information. I'm like, I just have to write another book, I guess. I'll just have to present this at the next conference. I'll have, and It's great. But I feel like part of my journey and why I'm have these gifts is because this is part of it, because I meant to share this. And this is why I'm writing my next book. Because I think the animals, people don't realize I have 22 years working with animals, being an animal communicator. I know, so all the stuff I've just told you, we could do like 5 interviews on just animal sessions and what I've learned about animals and their role with people. And that's why I'm writing this new book, because people need to know what the soul contracts are with our animals and why they're here and why they're domesticated and why we have wildlife and how they work together. And the sacred contracts are absolutely beautiful. And I feel like the collective is ready to hear that information now as well. So that's why I'm writing that one.
Yeah, I'm really excited about
Amazing.
that one. Is there
Can't wait.
any estimated release date for that, or just?
I don't know, because I keep adding chapters and I keep saying, oh my God, I got to do this and I got to do that. So I don't know. I'm
It's
going
hard,
to
right?
try to get it next year for sure. For sure, 2025. I just don't know when.
Right. Yeah. So
I went through that. It's like you'll never
Yeah.
get the book done if you keep at some point you got to be like, all right, it's
Oh,
done.
I'll cut myself off at some point. If I have to do a part 2, I'll do a part 2.
right.
There you go.
That's funny. That's where I'm at too. I have so much stuff. I'm like, I can't put all this in one book. I'm starting to realize,
Mhm.
Yeah.
because it's just, for one, I don't know. It just, I don't want to like
When you
release
have
this
a lot of
crazy.
information, it's so
Yeah.
hard. You just
Yeah.
can't put everything in one book.
Right.
There's
You don't
no
want to
way.
overwhelm people. They won't finish it. So it's
Also
better to
that.
give them these
Right.
bite-sized, like smaller books, and then they'll
Right.
appreciate it, you know?
Right. Yeah.
Right. Or however you want to put your information, because books, you don't have to just do books. There's people that do
Mm-hmm.
webinars or videos or whatever, or what's just
Yeah.
speak, whatever. It's like you can't put everything into one talk or one book or one you
Mm-hmm.
gotta decide
Right.
what's gonna, yeah.
Yep.
It's hard though. It was so hard for me with my book. And now, but I have like all this other stuff I want to put in the next book that I'm planning on. I haven't started yet, but it's gonna
So
happen.
yeah, this has
Good.
been great. I feel
Yeah,
like
thank you
I
so much. It's
we
been
can keep
amazing.
going if you want. We can wrap it up if you want, depending on how you're feeling. But I think we covered pretty much
Yeah,
everything
I
that.
think that's enough for information for one night. I don't want people to get overwhelmed. So I think we covered a lot. So I thank you guys for letting me come on and share this information. And I hope, more importantly, I hope that people that are watching this and will watch it over the course of the next few weeks as they catch up, they find it beneficial. So let us know, um, if this helped you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
To
absolutely.
summarize, just recognize your soul contracts serve a bigger purpose. So if you're really struggling right now, just take a moment to be in a neutral space without emotion and really evaluate the people in your life, why they're there, what could be the purpose. You don't need me to tell you what your soul contracts are. So don't feel like, oh my gosh, I have to have a session with Sherri. Like, that's not the point of this. You can do it on your own by just simple meditation and just grounding yourself and saying, what could be the reason? And then if it's something where you just need to create boundaries to heal and learn to let go, that could be part of it. Or it could be, okay, maybe I'm with this person for a reason and we need to try to work things through, and just recognize that what we do here, again, good words, good deeds, good thoughts. Like that's really important principle right now. And I think it helps people decide, like, the choices we make right now really are important and they matter. And they not only matter for ourselves, but they matter for other versions of ourselves, but also each other all over the world, all through different dimensions in time and space. So really try to be the most authentic version of yourself and work every day to be that best version of yourself by healing, by going within, by not getting distracted. Don't divide. Don't talk bad about other people. Forgive and release judgment and just focus on yourself and your life. And I promise you, you're going to be just fine. And don't succumb to the distractions. And then you will be able to be at a space of neutrality with high integrity. And then you will be able to make the right choices. That's it. Like, if that's all we take away from today, then I think that that's a good start.
Bravo. Mic drop to that.
Mic drop.
That was well
Yeah.
rehearsed, Sherri.
No.
No, it was beautiful. You nailed it. And I really love that you're talking about decisions we make here affect other versions of ourselves. That's something we don't think about. And I think vice versa too. And
Vice versa.
Yeah. So that's a very fascinating concept. Things we don't think about. And it's hard to remind ourselves that that's the reality of the situation. Because as soon as people turn off this interview, something's going to happen where they're going to get distracted and they're not going to think about what we just talked about. And if they let too many distractions like daisy chain, they're going to like they're not going to you're not going to actually start to integrate this stuff into your life and remember it. So it's important that
Mhm.
we constantly have these reminders and these conversations. So thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you guys for having me. Thanks for watching, everyone, and
Yeah.
one
Thank
thing at a
you.
time.
Guys, and really quick, we are getting ready to announce we're gonna launch ticket sales for our conference very shortly. We're finalizing a few details, and all of that will be available soon. And we will be blasting it out far and wide on the internet and all of our channels, and you will know about it. But it's right around the corner, so stay tuned for that. And don't forget to check out our website, Journey to Truth Online, and our Patreon. It's only $5 a month. And our next webinar is going to be on a history of the secret space program. It's going to be kind of modeled off of the presentation I'm doing at Margie K's conference, but we're going to expand on it. And we're going to turn that into our next webinar. So stay tuned for that. And I think that's it. We're going to go ahead and wrap this up. We love you all. We can't do this without you. Thank you so much, Sherri, for, battling through the flames to even get here. We appreciate that. And we, we'll have everyone send you some love and some protection because I know it's not easy to talk about this stuff and deal with what you just went through. So we
Thank
thank you
you.
for that.
Thank you.
And
Yes.
let me get to the page where I can end this live here, and then we'll go ahead and do that.
All
So, all right, good night. We love you guys. And
right,
until next
guys. Thank
time,
you,
have a great
Sherri.
evening.
Bye.
It was amazing. Bye, guys.